The glass shattered against the concrete floor. Dark soil scattered across the sterile white tiles of the laboratory. Marcus stood over the mess. He intentionally crushed the last intact mushroom sprout under his expensive leather shoe. "Your garbage research ends right here, Rose," he sneered. "Sign the patent transfer immediately. If you don't, that old janitor over there is going to prison for destroying company property." Rose fell to her knees. She desperately tried to scoop up the ruined soil. This was the last biological sample that could save her father's legacy. From the shadows of the hallway, a frail man in a faded gray janitor uniform stepped forward. He gripped his mop handle tightly. His eyes were filled with a quiet, devastating sorrow. "Hello, friends. There are gifts from above, planted with sweat and deep love, that will always take root, even when they are buried in the absolute dark." Before we continue with this story, please hit the subscribe button to support our channel. If you believe that integrity always brings a blessing, please leave a prayer in the comments. Type, "Lord, please bless the seeds sown with sweat and tears." Now, let us return to the basement. Rose ignored the cuts on her fingers as she gathered the contaminated dirt. She was trying to recreate a natural fungal strain to save the dying, eroded soil of her hometown. The man in the janitor suit slowly knelt beside her. It was Arthur, her father. He gently placed his calloused hand over hers. 10 years ago, Arthur wasn't sweeping floors. He was the lead biological engineer of this very corporation. He had developed a revolutionary organic method to restore dead soil, but Marcus, a junior executive at the time, had stolen the core data. Marcus rushed the patent using toxic chemical accelerators. When the early trials failed catastrophically, Marcus framed Arthur for the sabotage. Arthur lost his career, his reputation, and his life savings. Fighting the legal battles, the corporation offered him a humiliating choice. He could go to federal prison for corporate sabotage, or he could work off his massive debt as a cleaner in the very labs he designed. Arthur chose the mop. He chose it so he could stay close to the soil and close to his daughter. Rose had taken a low-level technician job just to protect him. "Leave it, Rosie," Arthur whispered. His voice was raspy from breathing chemical fumes all day. "We can start over." Marcus laughed from the doorway. "Start over with what? Dirt and garbage? The board of directors is visiting tomorrow. I am going to unveil the new chemical hydroponic line. It grows 10 times faster than your pathetic organic weeds. Sign the paper by tomorrow morning, Rose, or I call the police on him." Marcus turned on his heel and walked away. The heavy metal door slammed shut. The basement was completely silent. Rose wept quietly. Her tears fell into the dry, lifeless dirt. But Arthur did not cry. He carefully swept the remaining soil into a small plastic bin. That night, long after the security guards had done their rounds, Arthur returned to the basement lab. He didn't turn on the main lights. He worked by the glow of a small flashlight held between his teeth. He pulled a small glass vial from his pocket. It contained a thick, dark liquid. It was a simple plant ash extract he had been secretly brewing in his small apartment kitchen. It was the missing variable from his original research. He carefully dripped the liquid over the ruined mushroom spores Rose had tried to save. He didn't have fancy equipment. He didn't have millions of dollars in funding. He just had a lifelong passion for growing things, a spirit that refused to fear failure, and a deep love for raising his daughter. "Grow," he whispered to the dark soil. "Show them." The next morning, the corporate campus was buzzing with anxious energy. Henry, the billionaire CEO of the parent company, had arrived unannounced. Henry was a notoriously ruthless businessman, but right now, he was just a desperate father. He brought his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, with him. Lily suffered from severe environmental asthma and depression. She looked pale and exhausted. Holding tightly to her father's hand, Henry was furious. because his multi-million-dollar hydroponic projects across the country were mysteriously rotting at the roots. He decided to inspect this facility disguised as a standard safety inspector to see the truth for himself. Upstairs in the grand glass greenhouse, Marcus was sweating through his designer suit. The unveiling was supposed to be his ultimate triumph. Rows upon rows of massive glass tubes held the company's new chemical-grown mushrooms. But something was terribly wrong. Overnight, a strange yellow fungus had started spreading through the chemical water supply. The chemical accelerators were causing a toxic reverse reaction. The highly engineered plants were practically melting inside their expensive containers. Marcus panicked. If the board saw this, his career was over. He immediately ordered his technicians to pump triple the amount of chemical bleach into the water system to hide the rot. The air in the greenhouse grew thick and acidic. Henry walked into the greenhouse, wearing a simple hard hat and a high-visibility vest. He held little Lily's hand. As soon as the greenhouse doors opened, Lily started coughing violently. The harsh chemical smell was overwhelming. Henry's sharp eyes scanned the yellowing roots inside the glass tubes. He knew exactly what a dying crop looked like. Marcus rushed forward, forcing a confident smile. "Everything is perfectly under control, sir," Marcus lied smoothly. "We are just doing a routine system flush. These chemical yields will break market records by next month." Henry didn't say a word. He knelt down and picked up a piece of a rotting root that had fallen to the floor. It felt slimy and dead in his hand. "This soil is dead," Henry said quietly. "You are pumping poison into a corpse." Marcus swallowed hard. His smile faltered. He desperately needed a scapegoat. His mind immediately went to the basement. "It's the old janitor," Marcus blurted out. "He's a disgruntled former employee. He keeps a pile of organic garbage in the basement. His dirty experiments must have infected our pure water supply." Henry narrowed his eyes. He picked up his coughing daughter and held her against his shoulder. "Show me this basement," Henry commanded. Down in the basement, Rose was completely unaware of the chaos upstairs. She had been awake for 24 hours straight. Her hands were raw and blistered. She was frantically trying to salvage the spores that Marcus had trampled. She felt entirely defeated. She looked at her father, who was quietly emptying trash cans in the corner. She whispered a prayer into the cold room. "In our darkest and most hopeless nights, true dedication never betrays us. Let us join Rose in her moment of despair. Please write down in the comments, 'Lord, please bless the seeds sown with sweat and tears. Your words give strength to those who are fighting silent battles.'" The heavy metal door of the basement creaked open with a loud, piercing groan. Marcus marched down the concrete stairs first, confidently leading the way. "Prepare yourself, sir, because it is an absolute biohazard down here," Marcus warned over his shoulder. "This old fool has been hoarding contaminated waste for months." Henry followed closely behind him, carefully carrying Lily in his strong arms. The air in the stairwell was surprisingly cool and unexpectedly fresh. As they reached the bottom step, the harsh fluorescent lights flickered on, illuminating the gloomy space. Marcus pointed a sharp, accusing finger at the far corner of the room. "There they are. The saboteurs who ruined your investment," Marcus shouted triumphantly. Arthur was kneeling on the cold floor, gently pouring his plant ash extract over the rescued spores. Rose stood up quickly, instinctively placing herself between her frail father and the angry executives. She fully expected security guards to rush in and drag them away in handcuffs. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to look away or beg for mercy. But Henry didn't look at Rose, and he didn't look at Arthur. Henry was staring in absolute shock at the corner of the basement. It wasn't a pile of rotting garbage or toxic mold. It was a vibrant, breathing patch of impossible life, where the million-dollar chemical plants upstairs were melting into toxic sludge. Arthur's neglected soil was thriving beautifully. A thick, emerald green layer of organic moss covered the cracked concrete floor. Strong, healthy mushroom caps were pushing through the rich, dark earth, glowing with natural vitality. The air down here did not smell like bleach, ammonia, or corporate rot. It smelled like a deep, ancient forest, right after a heavy spring rain. Little Lily suddenly stopped coughing. She squirmed gently in her father's arms, until Henry slowly set her down on her feet. For the first time in long, agonizing months, the pale little girl took a deep, effortless breath. She walked slowly toward the patch of green, completely mesmerized. She reached out her small hand to touch a large velvety mushroom cap. A faint, beautiful smile appeared on her tired face as she felt the cool moisture of the living plant. Marcus panicked, frantically trying to step in front of the makeshift garden. "Don't let her touch that, sir. It's highly infectious waste," Marcus yelled, waving his arms. Henry raised his hand, silencing Marcus instantly. With a terrifyingly calm glare, Henry slowly approached the garden, ignoring the expensive fabric of his suit pants as he knelt on the floor. He knelt right next to the old janitor, who was still holding his small plastic bin. Henry recognized the specific, brilliant pattern of the soil bed construction. He pulled a small digital pH tester from his pocket and pressed it deep into the dirt. The digital display blinked for a second before revealing the reading. It was a perfect, impossible 7. Henry looked at the small glass vial of dark ash extract, still resting in Arthur's calloused hand. Then he looked closely at Arthur's face, studying the deep wrinkles and the quiet dignity in his eyes. "This is the A7 stabilization method," Henry whispered, his voice trembling with sudden realization. "I read about this theoretical model 10 years ago. When I first acquired this company, the board of directors told me the original researcher went mad and maliciously destroyed the lab." Arthur looked up, his tired eyes meeting the billionaire's intense gaze without flinching. "I didn't destroy anything," Arthur said quietly, his voice raspy but firm. "I just refused to poison the earth with cheap chemicals to make the plants grow faster. I told them the soil needs time to heal, but they only cared about the quarterly profits." Henry stood up slowly and turned toward Marcus. Marcus was completely pale, sweating profusely, his arrogance shattering into pure terror. "Sir, he's lying to you to save his own skin," Marcus stammered, taking a clumsy step back toward the stairs. "I developed the new hydroponic line myself, using modern science. Your modern science is currently melting the greenhouse upstairs and poisoning my daughter's lungs," Henry said coldly. "And now I finally see why it failed so catastrophically. You stole half of a genius's biological blueprint and tried to fill in the missing pieces with toxic shortcuts." Henry pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumb hovering over the screen. "Security. Send local law enforcement to the main greenhouse immediately. Have Marcus detained for massive corporate fraud, reckless endangerment of a minor, and theft of intellectual property." Marcus tried to run, scrambling desperately toward the exit. But 2 large corporate security guards were already blocking the top of the concrete stairs. They grabbed Marcus by the arms, ignoring his frantic screaming, and dragged him away. His pathetic, desperate excuses echoed down the hallway until the heavy metal door clicked shut. When the basement room was quiet again, Henry turned back to Arthur and Rose. He didn't offer them a meaningless charity check or a condescending corporate apology. He took off his hard hat and bowed his head slightly, in a gesture of deep, genuine respect. "The patent was always yours, Arthur," Henry said softly, the authority in his voice replaced by humble gratitude. "The board will restore your name to every legal document and patent filing by tomorrow morning. Your debt is erased, and this company owes you millions in back royalties. And frankly, we are in desperate need of a new director of organic research to fix the mess upstairs." Arthur shook his head slowly, looking down at his worn-out shoes and calloused hands. "I belong with the soil, right here on the ground, not in a glass boardroom." Arthur smiled faintly. "But my daughter knows the formula better than I do. She is the one who kept this dream alive when I had given up." Henry looked at Rose, seeing the fierce, unbreakable determination in her tear-filled eyes. Then I suppose we have found our new director, Henry said. Extending his hand to her, Rose shook his hand firmly, tears of overwhelming relief streaming down her face. Arthur reached out and pulled his brave daughter into a tight, emotional embrace. Rose buried her face in her father's faded gray janitor uniform, sobbing quietly. All the bitter years of humiliation, the silent suffering, and the relentless hard work had finally bloomed into something beautiful. Their unyielding dedication had taken root in the darkest, coldest place imaginable, and shattered the heavy concrete above it. If your heart feels moved by this beautiful moment of rightful justice, please leave your blessing in the comments right now. Type, Lord, please bless the seeds sown with sweat and tears. Your kind words matter more than you know. Exactly 1 year later, the corporate greenhouse was completely transformed. The sterile glass tubes, the glowing chemical vats, and the toxic smells were completely gone. In their place was a massive, breathing indoor forest, bathed in warm, golden sunlight. Rose walked confidently through the long aisles of rich, dark soil, carefully checking the moisture levels. She wore a simple white lab coat, but her hands were still proudly covered in dark earth. Lily ran happily through the rows of towering green plants, her cheeks rosy and her lungs full of life. Arthur was there too, no longer wearing a humiliating gray uniform. He wore comfortable gardening clothes, sitting peacefully on a wooden bench, watching his daughter heal the land. They didn't just save a massive corporation from bankruptcy. They proved to the world that the truth, no matter how deeply it is buried, cannot be hidden forever. When you plant your life with integrity, patience, and love, even the harshest winter cannot stop your inevitable spring. Thank you for sharing this incredible journey with us today. Please hit the subscribe button to keep your heart warm every single day. And before you close this video, leave one final prayer for those who are still fighting their silent battles in the dark. Type, Lord, please bless the seeds sown with sweat and tears. We will see you in the next story.